Welcome to Change the World. My name is Guy Dauncey, and this is the show where, with the help of many volunteers at Shore Cable, we explore big, bold solutions to some of the really big things that are troubling in the world, like the climate crisis and poverty and the housing crisis and all that stuff. And how do we keep the world safe for the beavers and the tigers and the bears, as well as the humans? So today, my guest is Cody, who is one of our local food champions. So Jen is a big-time supporter of local food and farming. She's been chair of something called the BC Food Systems Network for a while. I'm sure she'll tell us about that. And she is active with the Nanaimo Foodshare Society. What's your role with that? Welcome to the show, Jen, I should say first.
Thank you very much, Guy. I'm the executive director for Nanaimo Foodshare.
You're the big cheese, in other words, right?
Big kahuna, yeah, you bet.
Big organic cheese, we should say as well, right?
Exactly.
And what does the Foodshare Society do?
Nanaimo Foodshare, our mandate is to create a local sustainable food system, and we do that by addressing things like access to food. We support agriculture locally in order for increased food production in the area. We do community development with local organizations around food issues, both in terms of the growing food literacy and education and food skills. And we also look at policy as a part of the work that Foodshare does. Right,
so let me show you this first image of a young girl in a field, right? How much of this is happening locally in the Nanaimo area?
There's a lot of interest in local agriculture in Nanaimo, and a lot of interest of younger people getting into agriculture at this time as well. I would say that there's a movement happening within British Columbia that's where people are really becoming invested in and engaging in agriculture right now. A lot of interest in local food, and there's also a bit of a turnover in terms of what's happening with local food right now.
With the older farmers looking to retire?
Exactly. So in British Columbia, the average age of a farmer is 57. So many local farmers are retiring and have been retiring for a number of years. And what that's meant is that there's opportunity for younger farmers to then be mentored to access the experience of older farmers, and for them to start taking the land over time.
So the next image, this says, I was actively farming to some extent this summer, and that's got a four-letter word called W-O-R-K written all over it. I didn't really realize that every single pea, every leaf of lettuce, every bean is picked by hand locally. There's no great big machines doing it, right? So that's hard work.
It is.
But there's people wanting to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that some of that transition in terms of older farmers retiring, then one of the opportunities that are there is for younger farmers to be able to access different pieces of land and for them to be able to start farming.
But isn't it really expensive to buy a farm? How do you do it when you're 20, 30 years old?
Yeah, it's there's a number of different ways that young farmers are managing that piece. And the issue comes up with land tenure. So there's a lot of land that's available agriculturally in British Columbia and on the island.
Well, on the island you see it growing hay everywhere.
Exactly. So even within the ALR, about 50% of the lands that are at ALR are
That's the agricultural land reserve, land set aside specially for farming.
Exactly. About 50% is under food production, and about 50% is under hay production.
50% is growing hay for the horsey people.
Exactly. Yeah, you bet. There's lots of challenges there, but one of the big resources that British Columbia has is the fact that there is an agricultural land reserve. And so while there's things about it that we'd like to see improved, then it has held in place a number of parcels of land that can still continue to be agricultural, be restored as agricultural areas.
Well, when you look at the price of housing, and you think about the Fraser Valley, if that land wasn't protected, it would be snapped up within a week.
Exactly. Yeah, you bet.
It would be just mega development all the way from here to Hope.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's really good that it exists.
Exactly. Yes, that's true. And so for younger farmers, then the major challenge for them is accessing land that they can have long-term tenure for and have secure access to land over time. And sometimes that's a land lease agreement, a land use agreement. Sometimes young farmers are able to offer a service to a landowner. So landowners one of the things that's really valuable for them is to have their land under agricultural production, because often that means that they can attain farm status, which dramatically reduces their taxes.
Am I right that the older farmers are growing more dairy and cattle and stuff like that, and the younger farmers are doing horticulture? Or is that true or not?
I haven't seen that myself personally, that particular trend. I see older farmers in a variety of different types of agriculture, and I see the same thing for younger farmers as well.
Okay. So this next image, a box of food, what's this all about? And how does it tie to Foodshare?
Well, with Foodshare, there's a number of different programs that ties to. So Foodshare offers a Good Food Box. The Good Food Box is a collective buying program, so people can order food ahead, and then because they're buying in bulk and through a wholesale distributor, then it helps them to save money on their food. It comes out once a month, a $10 box. It usually value about $17 by the time it's all said and done. It works on volunteerism and on a coordinated effort, and that's how people are able to save money. In Foodshare, then one of the new projects that we started this year was the Foodshare Farm Box. That box was supported a new farmer, and that farmer had the opportunity to, on a small scale, launch a community shared agriculture project. So people were able to purchase a box from that new farmer, and it helped that farmer to learn some of the skills around having a box available on a monthly basis. And it also introduced local community members to a community shared agriculture like opportunity, so they could see if that was something that they would want to explore with other farmers.
And are other farmers growing and selling their food in boxes like this to regular people?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
That's probably quite a good way to get a stable, steady income, right?
It is, yeah, you bet. It's one of a number of different strategies that local farmers use as a part of their business plan to support themselves economically in a career that's agriculture.
So another way to sell is this image here is coming up. This is the Cedar Farmers Market, right?
You bet. And so that's another way that people who are involved in agriculture can become. Farmers markets have grown dramatically. So since about 2011, I think it's 127% increase in farmers markets, and the sales.
More than doubling then, right?
That's right. And the sales from farmers markets has dramatically increased. It's provided a venue for small scale producers to be able to step into agriculture without having to be on a bigger scale. And so it's allowed people to kind of learn the ropes and to step into marketing their food on a way that's a little bit more can be on a variety of different scales in terms of the investment that a farmer makes. The disadvantage of farmers markets for farmers is it's a very labor and time-intensive way of marketing your food.
Yeah, we did the farmers market this summer, and I was aware that you're doing all the picking, you're gathering it up, you're cleaning it, you're bundling it, you're taking it to market. It's a lot of time to do that, say, compared to the brown box
And then you're at the market for the duration of the market, and the time packaging things up and putting it into a truck and then unloading and then loading it up again and doing everything in reverse is very time intensive.
But the variety of crops that I think is coming up in this image that shows what can be grown locally is really amazing, right?
That's true.
And for those who know, what is it that's more important about local, fresh, organic than, say, store-bought stuff shipped in from California? What makes the difference?
Well, you're supporting a local agriculture, local economy, and you're supporting local jobs. You're supporting agriculture and the skills related to agriculture being maintained in this community. And so people who have those skills are able to pass them along and to put them into use. You're preserving agricultural land, because the more people that become involved and engaged with agriculture, the more agriculture that's going to continue to happen, as opposed to what's happening at the moment, which is people who have larger parcels of land selling them for development, and then they become houses. Once they're houses, that'll never be agricultural land again.
Do you find that when people are buying direct from a farmer like this, they actually do taste testing and discover he's got the juiciest tomatoes, or that black Russian tomato, or that particular carrot, and they go back to that person because of taste?
Exactly, yeah. And it's that experience in creating community and support in the community for things like agriculture. So by supporting your local farmer, you're supporting local food production, you're supporting local food that is tailored to this community. In the same way that for something like seed, that if you're growing your own seed, then that seed is adapted to this area.
We'll come to seed in a minute. First, one of the programs you run is called Kids Get Cooking.
Yes.
Right? What's happening here?
So for Kids Get Cooking, then what we do is classes, both in school settings and at Foodshare itself.
Yeah.
We engage kids in learning how to cook, and we teach the skills of cooking, and we teach about healthy eating, and we also teach about eating in season. So we're linking garden to plate for kids, and kids then take that home, and then they talk to their parents about what their skills are and the new things that they've discovered.
How are the kids enjoying it? What age kids are you talking about?
We work with kids that are age 6 all the way through to teenagers, so younger kids.
How do they respond? I mean,
they love it, and the parents come in and they're just like, I can't get my child to eat lettuce at home. I can't get my child to eat broccoli. All these foods that they engage with, that they prepare, it creates skills and self-esteem and a sense of adventure, and they're learning from each other that food is fun, and food is something that they can engage with in a way that is enjoyable.
So I'm older generation, as you kind of might have guessed, but when I grew up, my mother did the cooking, me and my father did the washing up, and there was a biblical law that I was not allowed to cook. I've learned since. Is that history, or is that still sometimes applied, that the women do the cooking and the men eat it?
I mean, I think that it's about people and how they enjoy the different activities that are part of their lives. And I would say that cooking is an activity that some people enjoy and some people don't necessarily enjoy.
50-50 men and women, it's all just mixed up now?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a gender disparity in cooking.
So the boys responding as well as the girls in your classes?
Absolutely, you bet. Okay. And I'd say that we have an equal participation on both sides of the gender issue. And so everybody has fun, no matter what their gender is. So
now seeds. People need to look quite closely at this image, because what you've got, can you talk them, I've got some spring onions, seeds, well, there's different beans and there's pepper with seeds. So why is it? How does seed saving happen?
Well, seed saving happens in a number of ways, but seed saving is another skill in addition to the skills that it's required for people to grow food. So in order to be a good seed grower, you have to be a good food grower. You have a good vegetable grower for that to happen. And you have to understand the differences between different types of seed in order to know which seeds you can save and which seeds you can't save.
Right.
And you also have to know a fair bit about who likes to mix it up with who. And so, and what that means.
You mean which plants?
Which plants.
Cross-pollinate and stuff like
That's
that.
exactly right.
Okay.
And so having an understanding of what type of the strategies in order to have seed that comes true.
So if you've got
at the end
one
of the
kind
day.
of tomato here, another kind of tomato there, you don't want any hanky-panky going on between them, right?
Not unless you would like to have a mix between the two.
You could experiment with a new hybrid.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So you can create some of new foods yourself as well, and that's a new way of having fun with your food, which is doing things like seed saving. Part of the knowledge of seed saving is the same as the knowledge of growing food, and it's a very intricate and complex, but anybody can do it, and so it's lifelong learning.
But with these seeds, because they're growing out, they're seeding annually. I know this is obvious, but I'm going to say it, that ever since we started agriculture 10,000 years ago, these seeds have been saved and replanted every single year, right?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Unless they're self-seeding, but they are regenerating and they replace
and
themselves.
the growers are then selected for the best variety and the ones with the best taste and.
Exactly. Yeah. So the qualities of the people who are saving that seed.
Okay.
And so in the past, then we've developed seed that meets the needs of the people who are eating the food that comes from that seed. And now a lot of the seed is being created in order to satisfy the needs of the economy that's associated with
Right.
food. And so foods might not being selected for their taste or their
just
or
for
their
the bulk and
shape,
volume and
or
stuff like that.
or they're really being selected for, do they travel well? Can you
Yeah.
pick them early? Do they ripen off the vine? That
So
type of thing.
this particular plant, there's some flowering about to turn into seed. What plant is this?
That's a carrot flower. Yeah, you
Right.
bet. And so different actually from the other plants that you were talking about, because carrots don't go to seed every year; they go to seed every other year.
Oh, that's very ornery of them.
Yes, you bet. So how you work with carrot seed is a little bit different than you might with other types of annual seeds.
So, yeah.
And that's one of the projects that Foodshare is involved with at the moment.
Say more about that.
And so we have a 5-acre farm in Nanaimo. The idea of the farm is engaging community to learn about seed saving, to learn about producing food on a market garden
Yeah.
scale. It's engaging people in an urban setting because it's accessible by the bus system and by local, by
Yeah.
walking, and
Yeah.
is located in a place where people can get to
Yeah.
it. And it allows an opportunity for the community to see how people farm vegetables,
Yeah.
and what that means in terms of building community around a food culture. The seed saving part of the farm we're involved with a couple of research projects. One's a carrot seed research project,
Wow.
and we also are doing variety trials that are looking at different types of seeds that have been produced organically and how they do in an organic growing setting.
So how many types of carrots are you growing out each year?
3.
There's 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, 3 is quite a jig because
You've got to keep them all separate against the wind blow and stuff like that as well?
and they're pollinated by insects, so you have to keep them separate from each other in order for them not to cross-pollinate.
So when I think of pollination by insects, what comes to mind is bees.
Right.
Am I right that there are actually many more insects that do pollination?
Pretty much every insect does pollination.
Every insect?
Yeah. So,
Not millipedes, though. I mean, give us a break.
well, true. Most flying insects.
Flying insects,
Yeah,
okay.
are the ones that will do pollination.
Wow.
And so for carrots, for example, then if you look at carrots that are in the field flowering and they're going to seed, you will see every type of insect. You'll see wasps, you'll see flies, you'll see bees, you'll see ground bees, you'll see every type of flying insect is really interested.
So when we talk about organic food and non-organic food, when the non-organic food has been sprayed with various pesticides to kill individual pests, are those sprays also killing the other insects that we need for pollination?
Yeah, all the beneficials. And so you end up taking out the ones that you don't like, but you end up also taking out the ones that are helpful to
It's a
you.
bit like when we take antibiotics. You know, you kill the bug and kill 1,000 other bugs at the same time.
That's exactly right. And then you have to replenish your
So is there active beekeeping in Nanaimo?
there is very active beekeeping in Nanaimo. Nanaimo, actually, it's the Nanaimo Beekeepers Club is probably the largest beekeeping club on the island.
Really?
And
oh, wow.
very well attended, over 140 members for that particular club, and monthly meetings that happen around education and helping people understand how to have healthy bees.
So in between growing food, helping at the food share, saving seeds, beekeeping, if people are interested in this and say, I'd like to get involved, how do they go about getting more involved if they've not done this before and they want to get their hands dirty?
Well, they can come to Foodshare and find out what types of programs and ways that they can.
So what's your address? Let's get this. Where is Foodshare?
Foodshare is at 271 Pine Street.
271 Pine Street.
Yep.
Okay.
And so it's close to downtown area.
Right. And you're open 9 to 5?
Monday to Friday.
Right. So people can knock on the door and say, I'd like to get some of that dirt under my fingernails and grow my own food.
Exactly. Or if they want to get involved with cooking classes, or if they want to get involved with policy, if they want to get involved with everything related to food, then there's opportunity. If it's not Foodshare, then we usually know some of the folks that are involved with some of those things, and can link people up to the skills and the knowledge and some of the volunteer pieces that people might want to become engaged with.
So if you had a magic wand and you were able to change the way things are done around food on Vancouver Island to grow more food, what needs changing so that we can actually, I believe it's 5% of our food we grow and 95% comes in on the ferry.
It's probably a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we were to do that, then
What
I
needs
think
to happen?
the major piece that I would say that needs to happen is we need to start seeing land as being food producing and not as houses and money.
Right.
And so in order for us to have long-term food sustainability for this region,
Yeah.
we need to start putting aside land for agricultural production. And we need to start making that available to people who are willing to farm the land for food production.
Someone might say that if half the ALR land, agricultural land reserve, is already just growing hay,
Right.
what does it take to persuade the farmers or the landowners growing hay to let young people come and grow food on their land? Or
Then you need to be working with those landowners in order to understand what the relationship and the benefit might be for both of the people
could
who
you
are
invent
interested
some
in
additional tax or incentive or bonus that if a
Absolutely.
if a landlord says, you know, I've got these 10 acres sitting out the back quarter just growing hay, and I want to have young people coming in.
Yep, and so different regions and municipalities and government bodies have put some of those policies into place.
Okay.
So there are some policies that do things like give tax credit to landowners that are doing environmental stewardship.
Okay.
And so for, say, an organic grower, then one of the things that they do is they're not using chemicals or pesticides on their land. They're usually creating habitat for pollinators through the different types of agricultural management that they're engaging into, including things like hugelculture and a number of other types of agricultural practices. And so the fact that that land is being enhanced by organic agriculture means that it can be beneficial, and there's tax breaks that can happen from that.
My experience is that if you're farming the land, you really need to live on it to watch the Canada geese, when the deer come in, mend the fences, watch which crop's in drought. If you had young people saying, look, you know, if the land is growing hay at the moment, acres and acres of it, so there's nothing happening, but there are zoning rules that say you can only have one house and they can't build on the land.
Right.
Have you thought around the problem of, like, what if people were to want to live in a little cluster of tiny homes in one corner of the land, so then they can farm it and grow food there? Even though the houses are there, you get more food coming off the land. Are we caught in a sort of catch-22 of planning that stops that, or can we find some?
I think that there's a number of different ways that you can approach that problem. I know that there's a few co-ops that were fortunate in that they had an ALR piece of land which was restricted in how much housing could be on the land, which is true. But adjacent to that land was non-ALR land, and so they were able to purchase a portion of that land, and so they were functionally on.
Right.
Well, they were technically not on the same property, but functionally they were. And so they built housing right adjacent to it in order to allow them to be right on that property. I know a number of the farmers in this area who are really involved in agriculture and are doing it as a career, aren't necessarily living on the land. And so they go to their work, which happens to be agriculture, and they come home and it's not actually right on the property.
I mean, the farmers you said who are now in their late 50s, they're going to live till late 80s or 90s without being able to carry on doing all that work.
That's right.
So there's kind of, normally their children would take over, and then the historical thing, the children would take on, but that's not happening anymore.
It's not happening
Children are
as
off being
much.
engineers in Toronto, right?
That's right, yeah. So the shift that needs to happen in order for us to have more food being produced on the island is to keep our agricultural land agricultural and to create agricultural land to be put into agricultural production. So enhancing the areas that were already designated as being agricultural. But we also need to make the profession of agriculture economically viable for the young people who are wanting to, and for everyone who's farming. If you cannot sustain it financially, then it's going to be much more difficult for people to continue in agriculture.
Now, in terms of the finance and making a profit off your farm, because frankly, if you haven't got a profit, you've got a loss, so you've got to make a profit. How much of that is a thing that it takes 2 or 3 years to learn the tricks of the trade and get more efficient and know where to put your labor? I mean,
well, I think it has to do with the cost of production as well. And so having business sense and understanding what parts of your production in terms of agriculture are going to actually be money making for you.
Understood,
So
yes.
having a business sense around what's going to be profitable.
Yes.
And then the other piece is also understanding what are the other benefits for me to be involved with this as a profession.
Yeah.
So there might be other ways that a farmer might not be making income, but
Yeah.
is being able to pay themselves with the work that they're doing. Part of that would be in food.
Yeah.
And the lifestyle that they're living
Yes.
as well, which has
Yeah.
benefits to it and some challenges.
So we
as
need to
well.
wrap up quite soon, but I want to show you one of my most, I think this is a classically beautiful image of food, right? Which combines pure mathematics and Romanesco broccoli, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something about this which is like the miracle of creation. I mean, those are geometrically amazing structures coming out of broccoli, which is saying, it's almost like me to think about the spiral galaxies in the universe and the food growing in the field. What inspires you most about growing food and farming?
Well, I would say the picture that you just showed is a really good example of seed selection and being able to work with the plants in order to create beautiful foods that have the characteristics that we find to be particularly worthwhile.
Yeah.
And so things like a Romanesco broccoli, then part of it is the visual effect that we're getting. Other people might be selecting for flavor or something that's frost resistant, or a plant that is pest resistant, or a plant that grows well in a mixed vegetable production. And so that piece for me is really interesting, which is how are we working with the plants in creating seed that then becomes very useful for us.
This is an evolutionary process, right? I mean, the same atoms created in the Big Bang, some of them turn into you and me, some of them turn into broccoli, but now you're engaging in that process to craft the new varieties, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That make you feel like God sometimes?
I don't
Or Earth
often
Goddess
feel
or-
like God, but it's a lot of fun, and it has a use, and there's a positive piece around being able to see things in the longer term, and the process around being able to work with those plants to create seed.
I just know that from the young people I know, and I can't really speak for them, but something's motivating them about, here's the plastic society sitting in a chair watching television stuff, and here's real growing food in nature on the land, and they want to feel that authentic, something real about it, right?
You bet. Yep. They want to get their hands dirty because there's a good feeling about.
Well, I know there's
productive
people
work.
watching the show who hopefully will be inspired to come and knock on your door on Pine Street, and I want to thank you, Jen, for being one of our leaders in inspiring us to grow more food and get involved in all this stuff. So thank you on behalf of hundreds of people locally, and all the children yet to come will be doing this. You've been, my guest here has been Jen Cody from the Nanaimo Foodshare Society. My name's Guy Dauncey. This has been Change the World, where we explore big, bold solutions. And I hope you join me next week for more of the same. Thanks for watching.